2, 1.
Good morning and welcome. I'm Victor Dzau, the president of the National Academy of Medicine, and I'm so pleased to see you all here at this virtual workshop. It's hosted by the National Academy of Medicine, or NAM, Committee on Emerging Science, Technology, Innovation, and Health and Medicine. We call it CESTI. So thank you for joining us today. I really want to first particularly thank the co-chairs of CESTI for their leadership. That is, as you hear shortly from them, Alta, Charo, Daley, and Atul Butte. I also want to thank the Moore Foundation for the support, for their support of this important work. In January 2020, the NAM formed CESTI to bring together diverse experts to assess the landscape of emerging technologies, in this case in health and medicine. We have a goal of developing a cross-sectoral governance framework. And you'll hear why shortly, both from our keynote and also from people presenting. But I just want to tell you, for the last 2 years, CESTI has worked and used a case study approach to examine potential societal, ethical, legal, and economic implications of emerging technologies. In addition, CESTI articulated a set of principles and values to guide the governance of emerging technologies. And CESTI distilled the lessons based on the work to date and has developed a high-level framework to broadly describe those issues of how do we address cross-sectoral governance and principles and commitments. Now, you're going to hear a lot about this. I just want to point out that this workshop is an informal workshop. And what you're going to hear in this framework is a preliminary work, but because it will be followed by a deep dive called consensus study. So that's today's workshop. What have we done? And then tomorrow, we'll launch the consensus study, the one that will truly get into recommendations based on the work that CESTI has done. So the study is called Creating a Framework for Emerging Science, Technology, and Innovation in Health and Medicine. And it will provide actionable guidance for how to manage the risk, benefit, and ethical societal implications of new technology. Very exciting. And of course, the study committee will be co-chaired by Keith Wailu from Princeton and Keith Yamamoto from UCSF. We call them Keith Square. So now I'd like to invite the co-chairs to say a few words. Unfortunately, Atul Butte is not able to join us, but he will be joining us later in this workshop. But let me turn over to first Alta Charo and then to Daley.
Greetings, and thank you very much, Victor. And thank you to Celine, who's helped keep us together, and to Deborah Matthews, who prepared many of our vision studies for the CESTI committee. It may be overly aspirational to think there's a possible framework that can address all different kinds of emerging technologies in the life sciences area. But it's worth trying to think about ways that we can construct something that speeds innovation, allows for ambitious creative thinking, but also focuses on how to anticipate ways to make sure that it maximizes social benefit and leaves no one behind. These are challenging when you have technologies that are rapidly changing and where the science is constantly evolving. And where society's vulnerabilities are also constantly evolving. But that's the task that we have set ourselves. And we are looking to try and work from principles, which were discussed during the CESTI process, to operationalization, which is where our consensus study chairs will take us. So I'm looking forward to the workshop and to the consensus committee activities. I'll turn it over to our co-chair, Daley, for his remarks. Thank you.
Thank you, Alta, and thank you, Victor. I really want to say thank you to my remarkable co-chairs, to Atul and Alta. It's always such a pleasure to work with them, but also the committee members. I can't remember an experience that brought me together with such a diverse array of experts from so many different fields. And we required all of those different perspectives to anticipate the many challenges that we face as a society when these important new technologies do emerge. And they do present to us not just scientific challenges, but deep ethical and societal challenges. And we had a committee that was composed of experts that allowed us, I think, to come up with core principles and laid a very, very strong foundation for the consensus study. So I want to thank the committee for their remarkable work. I want to thank Celine, Balatpat, Deborah Matthews, other members of the National Academy staff that supported us and really made the work possible. I think the consensus study is in the best of hands with the two Keiths, and I very, very much look forward to seeing how their work evolves. So thank you, and I'll turn it back over to you, Victor.
Thank you, George, and thank you, Alta. Couldn't have been better in terms of working with two of you and Atul, and as you said, an outstanding committee, which I certainly, in my short remarks shortly, will certainly recognize them as well. And of course, as you heard, a great team of people working on this. So we're very excited. 2 years worth of work, tremendous energy, tremendous interaction to get to where it is. It's not an easy topic. The fact that we need 2 years of planning and being open with all different sectors, the private sector, the academic sector, the government sector, you name it. I think that's what the great success of this committee is. So let me turn to Keith Wailu, who's one of the two co-chairs. Keith, as you know, is the Henry Putnam University Professor of History and Public Affairs at Princeton. And he will be one of the two co-chairs of this consensus study, which will be formally started at least tomorrow as we launch the study and they're getting the committee members together. Keith, over to you.
Thanks, Victor. I'll just say quickly that it has been an honor to work with the CESTI committee, and I'm really pleased to build on their excellent work alongside the other Keith on this important and ambitious consensus study, one that takes seriously the idea of governance that marries ethical ideals of equity, civic responsibility, human values to the longstanding commitment to pursue innovation in science, medicine, and health. And so just very quickly, I'll say that I'm very pleased to be continuing the work and working with another outstanding group of experienced scholars and policymakers on creating this governance framework and one that's actionable and can live up to the ideals that have been articulated here. Thanks.
Thank you very much indeed. Keith Yamamoto from UCSF, the Vice Chancellor of Science Policy and Strategy.
Great, thanks, Victor. And I certainly echo Keith Wailu's comments about the fantastic work of the CESTI committee. I want to thank them and join Victor and the co-chairs in welcoming everyone who's attending today and thanking you for your attention to this important set of challenges. Transformative advances, real breakthroughs or quantum leaps in science emerge from advances in technology, new ways to observe or detect or measure better and faster, and the creation of applications of newly discovered knowledge, the fruits of basic research. Now, when it comes to biomedical research, health, and medicine, the emerging technologies that generate, or at least hold out the promise of generating those quantum leaps seem to be appearing more and more frequently and seem more and more dazzling, each one that appears more dazzling than the last. But with this excitement comes a warning. And I like the way that Yuval Harari put it in his book, Sapiens, that humans are very good at inventing things, but very bad at anticipating the consequences of using those things. And it turns out that the implied consequences, indeed risks, of using new technologies are increasingly complex, with broad-ranging implications that span stakeholder sectors, as the co-chairs have told us, challenges that are legal and economic and social, ethical, and matters of equity, each raising complex issues of how governance can be derived, by whom, and whether there exist grounding principles common across technologies that are known and those that are still to come. So in a way, our goal in this workshop is to learn from the incredible work of CESTI, and for each of you to think about ways to improve what Harari tells us is a sorry track record of anticipating consequences of human invention. In our case, of emerging science, technology, and innovation in health and medicine. And having listened and learned throughout these next 2 days to consider how governance of these scientific advances in technology, in science and technology, might be structured to recognize and respond to implications of their use, ethical, societal, economic, legal, and so forth. And to do this iteratively at every stage in the development cycle. So the charge to CESTI, as we heard, is to assess the landscape of emerging scientific advances and technologies in health and medicine and address the potential implications of those technologies. And the goal is nothing less than to consider the potential, at least, for cross-sectoral governance. This is a big challenge and a big order. I'm really excited to hear from CESTI members what they have learned and how they are thinking about moving toward a framework. And as Keith said, tomorrow we will, at the end of the workshop, we'll introduce this handoff to a fantastic consensus report committee that will be charged with creating a governance framework founded upon those core ethical principles with a focus on equity. So I think it'll be an exciting couple of days, and we're really looking forward to your impressions and wisdom that you impart as you hear what the CESTI members have done. So let me hand it back to, thank you all again, and hand it back to Victor.
Thank you, Keith, and thank all of you. You know, I think you must be wondering, CESTI to study, handing off, what does that mean? Well, I think I would say the following. For 2 years, we have the best minds to come together to lay the framework, if you will. And then what we want to do is to have a process in the academy, which is consensus study, which will be a group of individuals that includes some CESTI members and additionally new members such as Keith and others, Keith Yamamoto, to really now take their findings and to generate a report. And that report should be without conflict, objective. And so this is the process of continuity between CESTI to report. It's not discontinuous. It's not truly heading off. It is actually a continuum of doing the groundwork, the open discussion, to a more thoughtful report recommendation, which in fact can be used for guidance for the future. You'll hear more about this in a few minutes. For those who are interested in this topic, actually 2 days ago, we published in New England Journal of Medicine in Science and Society, a very short paper that described the need for this, why do we need to do this, and why this is CESTI and the study was formed. I think this, in fact, is part of our strategic plan for National Academy of Medicine in trying to say beyond science, we need to have social responsibility and address the implications. So that's the background behind it. I encourage you to read the paper. It's written by Deborah Matthews. You'll hear very shortly. Salim Balabat, you heard her recognized, and myself on behalf of the CESTI committee. Now, key to all this is, of course, a lot of thinking and recognition, this being an important problem. And one of the world's leaders, Gary Marchand, has been writing